Hoi hoi folks, good morning, good afternoon and good evening wherever you are in the world. My name's Sean, aka Uncle Frogface, and welcome to today's video. So if you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. As you might have seen from the title of today's video, we are doing another polymer clay Nightmare Before Christmas sculpt. So last time we did the mummy child, and I'll leave links down below to that video if you haven't seen that already. Today we are doing actually my favourite character in the movie. It is the Harlequin Demon. So we started off with a sketch, which I'll post just there. And from that sketch, I'm going to create my version of this character. So I'm going to stay pretty true to the original, just with a few small tweaks that are a little bit more me. But yeah, this is definitely an interesting one. Had a few issues along the way, a couple of things that cropped up. So make sure you stay until right to the very end so you can see the whole journey that this sculpture took me through. But we're going to start right at the very beginning, and the first thing we need to do is make our base. So I have these and this. Just some normal corrugated cardboard and some masking tape. So I did a similar thing for my Cyclops mummy sculpt. And we're just creating a little kind of cardboard base here that we can then cover in polymer clay. And to do that, I've rolled out these sheets already, and I'm just going to use a bit of this liquid sculpting, which is brilliant for gluing things to wet clay and wet clay to dry clay, all that good stuff. And when you bake it, it creates a really nice bond. So I just need a little bit. And then because we've got corners here, I'm just cutting these parts out, and then that means that I can fold up the edges and we'll get nice clean lines. So again, a little bit of liquid sculpey, and we'll fold all of those parts up and then just blend it all together with our fingertips. And this saves you having to drill holes in pieces of wood or anything like that. You already have polymer clay, obviously, because you're doing a polymer clay sculpture if you're doing these. And cardboard, I mean, I'm sure we've all got bits of cardboard laying around. So it saves it going in recycling at least. So once I've kind of smoothed all that over and brushed it over with a bit of baby oil, which gets rid of most of the kind of imperfections in the clay, just coming in and just kind of doing this weird flagstone texture in the bottom. And then I'm making a couple of holes using the wire that I'm actually going to use to make the armature, to make the holes. And when it's baked, it's nice and hard, and we can start making our body for our sculpt. So for this, again, I'm using just normal corrugated cardboard, and I've got these three pieces, and this is going to create my kind of main body shape. So once I cut those out, you can see these two parts slot together nicely, and they'll sit on top of that piece there. And then we'll have the body for the Harlequin Demon. So I'm just using masking tape to stick this all together. So as I said, the Harlequin Demon is my absolute favourite character in the movie. I don't know why, because he's not a main character, but I just absolutely love him. He's just the one that I remember from a child, and I used to draw him all the time. So I've got some greaseproof paper here, just some baking parchment, and just crumpled it up. I'm going to fill these bits here, and this is just to bulk out the body a bit. I could have gone in with silver foil, but it would have taken a lot of silver foil, so we've got masking tape. Now remember, non-stick paper, greaseproof paper, is there so that things don't stick to it. So it pops off occasionally. So that was fun. And then my foil had like a little indent in it, which meant that it wouldn't unwrap, and that kept popping out. And Zeus, why Zeus? Okay, take a breath. So once I managed to finally get some foil off of the roll, I'm just going to wrap this piece in some foil, a couple of layers, keep it nice and insulated, and means that you can kind of mould it a little bit and get a nice shape. And then again, covering it in clay. So I've got some liquid sculpting. I'm just going to pop that down there. So to avoid kind of creases, I'm just going in and cutting out a few sections like this, and it means that we can fold up those almost like petals on a flower, and then again with some liquid sculpt, we can stick that to the sides and smooth out the edges. So that's the bottom piece, and then I've got another big piece for the top there. So there we go, just a little bit of liquid sculpting. And you can see, much like we did with the base, we can just pinch those pieces together and then smooth them out afterwards using the back of a spoon tool. So same idea with the large piece over the top. I could just put it on and fold it and pinch away the pieces, but I think this gives a much kind of smoother finish if you cut out pieces and then smooth the edges together. Now we see the back of the spoon tool. If you haven't got a spoon tool, then just use a spoon. I mean, the clue's in the name. You've got one side which is kind of dipped in, one side which curves over, and you can get a relatively smooth surface. So because I'm adding onto the top of this, I'm not too worried about it being absolutely smooth, but I'm just coming in and poking the holes for the arms, legs and the neck, and then using the actual armature wire I'm going to use so that I'm not struggling to get that in afterwards. So once that is all baked, it is time for us to do the feet. So the base is baked. The main body armature is still there waiting to be baked. So the demon has 6 toes on each foot. So I'm making this kind of weird duck foot shape and just coming in with an explorer tool and marking out those toes and roughly putting them where they're going to be on the base. We can smooth all of this out later. And then the legs are just cylinders which are slightly squashed down on one end to give this kind of truncated cylinder shape. And then we go through like that, like that. So we have a piece of wire that can go into the base, a piece of wire that can go into the body, and we just smooth all of that out both at the ankles and at the base of the body. And once that's all attached with some more liquid sculpting, we can put that into bake. So while that's baking, I want to make some scales for the body. So the whole body is covered in 7 rows of these scale shapes. So I've got this clay tool and I'm just rocking from side to side at a slight angle to get these nice scale shapes. And it means that I can peel away the excess from one side using a tool just to make it a little bit easier. I'm just kind of lifting the clay out of those little sections there and pulling it all away. And then we end up with a whole row of scales, and it means that we don't have to make everyone individually and place them on one by one. We can actually do them in a nice row. So I thought to myself this might work quite nice for a fish. So I think I might make a fish in the future. So this is all baked now and cooled off, and again we're attaching wet clay to dry clay, so unfired clay to fire clay. So I'm just using a bit of liquid sculpting, putting this around, pinching off the excess, and again using the back of the spoon tool, or you could use a spoon. And when we've done all 7 layers, this is what we have. So there we go, all fired, and you can see we have a bit of a crack in the foot there, so we're going to repair that soon. That's not a problem, but we're going to put the arms on now. So first thing we need to do is cut our pieces of armature wire. So this is just soft aluminium wire or aluminum wire if you're in the States, and I've just cut the length that I want, and then I'm just going to use my pliers here to grip and kind of bend into the shape that I need for each arm. So I want one arm to be kind of further out in the front and one arm towards the back, giving a little bend for the wrist as well where the hands are going to go. And once I'm happy with those, you can see I cover it in foil first and then cover it in some clay. And these are some pre-baked spikes. Baked early, these are just little rolled out strips. And as I said, we had issues with this sculpture, so more than just the crack in the foot, there was so much. But the arms itself, they're actually covered in these kind of tufts of fur. So around by the wrist, I'm doing these little small pieces, and I'm just kind of texturing them with a tool and then cutting them off and then getting larger as I go up, poking in the spikes as we go. So that's what that looks like with one arm complete. And we're going to do the same to the other arm.
Good morning, everyone. So, first of all, apologies for looking like garbage. It's early morning. I've just had a shower, so before I kind of get started for the day, just wanted to tell you that we had a catastrophic disaster last night. The polymer clay gods have definitely forsaken us, but I'm just gonna, I'm gonna get myself ready for the day and make myself a cup of tea and wake up a little bit, and then I'll show you exactly what happened. But it's fine, we have the technology, we can rebuild. Okay, so here we are, pretty in pink with a face on and nice hair-ish. I really need a haircut. But yeah, so last night we had a disaster in our final baking of the day. So we finished off doing the arms, repairing that crack in the foot, and then doing a final bake before heading to bed and starting again today. That final bake was a little bit problematic, so I ended up propping the statue just a small amount to help with that foot, and instead this happened. Also, lastly, if this ever happens to you and you are tweeting about it, or you're on Instagram or Facebook and sharing progress, make sure you specify that it is the sculpture that has broken ankles and not you. Yeah, so that was fun. But actually, that's a really good point for me to say. My social medias are down below if you want to check those out. But yeah, had a few people thinking that I had fallen over in the oven and broken my ankles, which did make me laugh last night. But okay, let's get back to it.
Okay, so yes, that was a disaster, but it's nothing we can't come back from. So, first thing, these spikes were just way too fragile, so I'm just going to snap them all off. And because this happened last night, and I had a whole kind of evening and morning to think about it, I already have my solution for this, and we'll be coming to that later. But for now, he's going to be spikeless, and we'll do that probably towards the end. So, here's all of our trash. Scooters away. Okay, so repair time. First thing I'm going to do is just trim the bottom of this clay here. So I'm just using a carving knife. That's a wood carving knife, actually, I think. I'm just trimming off the bottom. And we're just going to carry on. So we're going to make his hands next. So he has these 3-fingered frog-like hands. And these are fairly simple to make, so I'm just kneading my clay there to get it nice and soft. So yeah, if you're ever making a sculpture and it starts to go wrong, or you have a disaster in the oven like that, don't worry, you can always fix it somehow, or turn it into something else. Who knows, you can use it as a scrap clay. But never give up. Never give up, never surrender. So, after I've made these hands, I'm just going to, again, use a little bit of liquid clay and blend them in. And once they're posed, those are the hands there. And I'm not going to bake these until I've done the head and probably the new feet as well. So for the head, I've got this slab of clay. And I'm just going to cut a piece with a slight curve. So I'm kind of pressing as I go to give it a little bit of a curve. And we're going to trim at the back and blend that together. So he has this interesting kind of bowl-shaped bottom jaw. So that's what I'm attempting to make here. So there we go. So once I'm happy with the kind of size of that, just pinching it out a little bit to get a nice area of contact with the base. And so it's almost like a collar. We're just going to blend that all in. And once that's blended in nicely, I'm just going to press out the top edge to give that uneven living bowl shape. So you can see inside, I'm just using a snake of clay in there and the back of a small spoon tool just to blend that all out. And these are the teeth that I made. Again, a small slab of clay, a very thin slab, and I just cut out a zigzag, split it into two, and you can see I've already got my teeth there for the top part of the head as well. Here he is, all smoothed out after having a bit of smooth out. New feet made as well and glued on. And while he's baking, we are going to get on with making the head. So the head's interesting because he has these three kind of tendrils at the top. Tim Burton's really fond of tendrils. If you look at kind of Beetlejuice when he unwraps his giant arms, or the sandworm, for instance, is very kind of tendril-like, tentacular. So I've got three pieces of aluminium wire. I've made a base from foil just by squishing it into the shape that I want, and then another slab of clay over the top. Here you can see I'm pinching instead of cutting the edges because it's a smaller piece. It'd be easier to blend in. And we're just blending that over like a skin for the main head part. And now I've got three pieces of clay, one for each tentacle, or each tendril. I'm just rolling that out, making sure it's thinner at one end than the other. And once that's all rolled out, I can measure the kind of length that I want. I actually ended up going way too long, and I ended up pinching the end off all three of the tentacles as I go, making them a bit shorter. Once you've got a tentacle shape, if you're trying to attach it to a piece of armature wire, if you make an incision down one side, making sure not to go all the way through the clay, then you can open it up, which can be a little bit fiddly sometimes, especially with this medium clay. But open it up, and then you can kind of slot the wire into that groove and then pinch around, and then again using a spoon tool or a teaspoon you can smooth out that edge. So there we go, you can just smooth it out really nicely. And once all three are done, end up with this, and I'm just blending that in a little bit better to the head using this small piece of clay. I'm just blending this in with my finger. This was a really easy bit to blend in, and that just gives it a more of a fluid motion to those tentacles coming out the top of the head. Here I'm starting to position them. I end up repositioning them a few times, and again changing the length of the tentacles. They're a little bit long here. But you can see, you can just bend those tentacles really nicely with that wire inside. And any kind of grooves or creases you can smooth out. So I'm taking a large ball stylus and just marking out where I want the eyes to be. So here's a little bit closer. I'm just pressing into the clay. And then taking small balls of clay, making sure they're both the same size. And then flatten them out into discs. And with a bit of liquid clay, popping them into those sockets that we've made. And that gives a really nice kind of rounded eye shape. And then just smoothing them out a little bit with a smaller ball stylus. And once I'm happy with those, I can cut some small pieces of clay for eyelids to get the eye shape. So he has these kind of pointed eyes, these little cat eyes. And you can see we pop all four eyelids on, and then we can come in afterwards once we're happy with the position and just smooth those into place. So I'm using a rubber tip tool here, but any tool you've got to hand will be good for this, or just use your fingertips. Use what you've got to hand. Okay, and last thing for the head is the teeth. So we've got these left over from when we cut teeth for the bottom part, and we're just going to stick this on with a bit of liquid Sculpey, and I'm not even going to worry about blending this in. I'm just going to angle the teeth outwards a little bit, and then he's off to bake.
So if you haven't done so already, why not take this moment to hit like and subscribe? Go on, I'll wait. No, but seriously, I do upload pretty regularly, but my schedule's a little bit different each week. So if you want to be notified of when the next video is up, remember to hit that notification bell and you will never miss a video. But I will always have at least one video up a week.
So now that that's out of the way and this little guy is fully baked, you can see that's eventually what he should look like. So the next thing we need to do is give him a base coat. So I'm just going to paint the whole thing in black, and this will be the last job for the day because it's getting quite late. So we're just going to paint the whole thing, let him dry overnight, and then we can come back and start laying on our actual colours. And this is just cheap acrylic paint. All of my paint is the cheapest that I can find. And there we go, he is now completely painted. I'm just going to leave him to dry and hope the cat doesn't knock him over. Hooray! He's still intact. And everything's nice and dry now, inside and out. So we're going to start with the places that are most difficult to get. So the legs and the inside of the mouth. Because once we kind of are getting in there with a paintbrush, we don't want to be getting paint other colours in those areas. So I'm going to mix up the colour for the inside of the mouth now. So all of the colours on the Tim Burton characters are quite desaturated. So I've got red here, and I'm going to use its opposite colour, which is green, and add a little bit of green to kind of desaturate it, and then a little bit of black to darken the colour. And then just go in and paint the inside of the mouth, both on the body and the separate headpiece. So my most valuable tool when I'm painting these sculptures is a hairdryer. So between coats, if I need multiple coats, or between sections, I can just hit it with a hairdryer on a warm setting for a couple of minutes. Not even a couple of minutes, sometimes it's a few seconds, but it will just dry that off and let you paint the next part without waiting ages for it all to dry. As quick as acrylic paint is to dry, sometimes I can get a little bit impatient. So I've mixed up a grey colour here, just coming in with his legs and with the kind of bowl shape of the bottom jaw. And you see I painted the hands in that dark green colour. Once I painted all of that, I realised that the colour was much too light, so I made it a little bit darker, and I'm coming in and painting the legs and the bowl again, and then this is the finished part there. So I'm darkening the grey even more, and I'm going to paint the whole headpiece and just give that a really nice base coat. So the head is just a little bit darker grey, so I've just added a little bit of black to the grey that I already had. I'm just going to give this all a nice coat, including all of the eyes and the eyelids. Then using that same dark grey, I've got next to no paint on my brush, and I'm dabbing a lot of it off, and this is an old, very dry, coarse brush, and I'm just giving that a bit of a dry brush to bring out the texture of the fur. Now we're on to more detailed work. So, colours. We have a lighter green, orange, and yellow. So we've got the orange for the stripe on the legs, and the scales go in layers of orange, green, orange, green. So there's the orange, and then we have a little bit of green, and these took several coats because it's cheap acrylic. And then we go in with orange, and then green, and then orange. Any guesses what comes next? Yeah, it's green. And then finally we come in and do our orange, making sure to get a nice crisp line at the top to separate the scales from the jaw bowl. I'm just going to call it the jaw bowl from now on. So I'm going to use that same orange paint and paint the stripes on his tentacles. So here's stripes all along his tentacles. And I was having a steady hand day to day, so as most of you probably know, I still suffer with a hand tremor occasionally, but was having a good day. So I'm using that light green just to dry brush over the feet and the hands, just to give them a little bit of texture and a bit of variation in the tone. And now we are painting teeth. So again, really good that I was having a steady hand day, because I had to paint each tooth individually with one of those tiny paintbrushes that I use for my miniature master study, which I will have another one of those up pretty soon. But once all the teeth were done on the top and the bottom, it's time to come in for the eyes. So he's got lovely yellow eyes, and the yellow over the grey really did not want to go down cleanly. So this ended up taking about 5 coats, I think, before I got a uniform colour in the eyes. Just, praising Zeus for steady hands that day. So this was my idea for the spikes. So I've just taken a bit of washi tape and taped down these cocktail sticks, and that means that I can paint them all a little bit easier. And I'm just going over each end, front and back, and just giving them a coat of yellow paint. and then setting that aside to dry. And while that's drying, I'm just coming in for the pupils on this guy. So he has red pupils, so it's just a little dot of red, again praising Zeus for steady hands today. And there we go. So again, I'm taking my pliers. I could have done this with scissors, but my pliers are at hand, and I'm just snipping off the ends of these spikes. So I have loads of these little yellow spikes, and these ended up being a lot sturdier than the polymer clay. And I've just got a pair of forceps from my nursing days, from my veterinary nursing days, dipping it in super glue and just attaching it there. So you can see the head already has a wire glued in, and I just dipped it into glue, poked it into the hole, and we're gluing his head into place.
And after all of that, we are finished, and here he is. I absolutely love him. He's definitely my favourite polymer clay sculpture to date. Definitely the most difficult one I've done to date, but it has just spurred me on to do even more. He's brilliant. And because, here's a little added thing, because we use a piece of armature wire for his mouth, it means that we can actually pose his head in different directions, which is just so cool. He is going to live on my desk with the Cyclops mummy child. Can't stop admiring him, he's brilliant. Okay, so if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. Big thumbs up for you. I really hope you've enjoyed yourself. As always, I will see you again next time. Goodbye.